Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit ahead of time and just scraped all the questions off the first couple pages. We're going to answer them now. Also put it Dragon Ball FighterZ that plays in the background because it's a better game than Overwatch. And please do just pretend whichever side won was the side I was on. Thank you. God, I miss having a controller. So first up is, how do I choose what support to pick? I mean, if you don't know who to pick, pretty much just pick Baptiste. He kind of fits in almost any comp, outside of, like, a dive comp, I guess. You can kind of just pick him sort of whenever, really, and it's pretty much fine. Ana is also, I find, generally fine if you're not sure what to pick. I mean, pretty much just pick whoever you want, dude. Like, it's not the end of the world. The biggest thing to just think about is, like, do we have a main healer? If you don't have a main healer, like, if the other person playing support has picked Zen or Lucio, then, like, or Bridget, pick a main healer. Doesn't, you know, whichever one. Not Mercy. Mercy's not a main healer anymore. Please stop doing that. Please don't just pick, like, 2 off healers, but outside of that, like, it kind of doesn't matter a lot of the time, to be honest. Like, you don't usually have to worry about these things, like, meta tier list-wise, unless you're an extremely high SR. You can just pick whatever you're personally good at, and it's fine. You know, if you can play all the supports, like, reasonably well, like, if you've got some really good people to damage boost on there, like Ashe, snipers in general, Pharah, you know, Mercy's gonna be a good pick. If the enemy team have got, like, if they're very dependent on certain ultimates to win, like Graviton or Dragon Blade, then you should have Lucio or Zen for the defensive ultimate. If they're very, very dive or flanker heavy, then consider picking Bridget, because, hey, you know, crowd control, those people really don't like playing against crowd control, so Bridget is helpful against that. If you're having trouble surviving, pick Moira. Moira is very survivable. She doesn't require much teamwork to stay alive. She's very good at just getting away from shit. That's, like, the kind of things to think about. Like, the big one is, like, pretty much, do we have a defensive ultimate? You don't necessarily need one, depending on what the enemy team is. Because if the enemy team is, like, McCree, Junkrat, then you don't necessarily need a defensive ultimate for those. Trance obviously doesn't help with those ultimates at all, because they one-shot you. Lucio can still help versus those people with sound barrier, but, like, you're not really thinking, they got a McCree, better pick Lucio to counter Deadeye, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to worry about it so much as if they have, like, Dragon Blade or, like, Death Blossom, you know, stuff like that you might want to worry a little bit more about. That's, like, the big one, really, and do we have a main healer? Please stop playing Mercy like she's a main healer. It makes me very sad when people continue to pick Mercy as a main healer. She really, like, cannot keep up as a main healer anymore. She just, like, can't do it. Please don't. Outside that, like, just play who you're good at, dog, and if you're not sure who to pick, play, like, Baptiste or Ana. They fit into, like, most situations. Ana you can play with a dive comp as well. Baptiste, not so much. So, anyway, next up is, as a Mercy, who should I prioritize boosting? Ashe. If you got an Ashe on your team, Ashe is basically the one you should be prioritizing the most, because now she can one-shot people, which she can't otherwise. Or she can one-shot 200 health people from full health, which she can't if she isn't damage boosted. So she's a big one. Snipers are very good to damage boost. It makes it easier for them to one-shot somebody or finish somebody off. Here's my sum. There goes my sum. If there's a Pharah, you should prioritize her a lot as well, obviously. You know, pharmacy's been a thing since dinosaurs roamed the earth. Junkrat's a very good one to damage boost. Bastion, obviously. More on Bastion later, though, towards the very end of the episode. We've got some very fun Bastion statistics you'll enjoy at the end of this one. Yeah, those are the big ones to prioritize. To be fair, it's a fair few people. There's usually, a sniper on your team. It's rare you go through a game and somebody that doesn't pick, Widow, Ashe, or Hanzo. McCree and Soldier are also good ones, but, the order is, Ashe, Pharah, other snipers, Junkrat, and then, all other, good DPS, so, Soldier and McCree. Mei is actually okay to damage boost, because her right-click's, pretty good, honestly. So if the DPS are something like, Genji Tracer, you don't really want to go with those people as Mercy a lot of the time. So at that point, maybe just, your Orisa, or, your Sigma, or something, your Zen, maybe, sometimes the DPS are, people you can't trust, or just, not that impactful to damage boost anyway, like Tracer Genji. So at that point, if you've got, Zarya, just somebody that you can, safely damage boost. Toes and Orisa are, the best ones as far as tanks goes, but you aren't necessarily, Zarya Reinhardt seems very popular right now, comparatively, so you pretty much get Zarya at that point, but there's usually, a good DPS to damage boost on your team. It's pretty rare that, there isn't a McCree or a Junkrat, at least, there's usually someone. Yeah, there you go. So, next up is, what is a good DPS to pick when learning the role? So, I've always said Soldier is, one of the best DPS you can pick, just because it's, he's really easy to play as far as DPS go. And he teaches you, fundamentals like controlling high ground and positioning. Those are, the biggest things with Soldier. He's pretty independent. You don't need people to really help you out very much, because Biotic Field is pretty good, and if you're in a bad situation, you can usually just sprint away from the guy, he's just easy to play, pretty much. So he teaches you some fundamentals about the game. Reaper is pretty good, I think. It's kind of hard to fuck up on Reaper. The thing for me is, does the hero teach you something is, a big thing if you're learning how to play the role. And, Soldier will teach you about positioning. Reaper teaches you about, when to engage and cooldown usage, because both of Reaper's cooldowns are very important, as well as picking your time to go in. So, they're good ones. Someone like Mei is good. She's got, basically, it's really hard to fuck up as Mei. You have to fuck up pretty badly as Mei. You just kind of, bully people, pretty much, most of the time. Has two, very good abilities for, saving yourself, and an ultimate that is extremely easy to use and has a very big impact. Blizzard is, one of the scariest ultimates in the game, as far as I'm concerned. Blizzard's fucking terrifying, dude. Who else is good? Junkrat's good. Doesn't really teach you anything. May also teach you, cooldown usage and when to engage. Same deal as Reaper. Junkrat doesn't really teach you anything, other than, boy, is spam really hard to, move through. He does teach you some positioning stuff and ability usage, but, not really. Junkrat probably teaches you, ult timing, to be fair. Riptire, if you use it at the wrong time, can be, underwhelming, to say the least. But, use it at the right time, and hey, you gotta play the game, right? So, he kind of teaches you that. Soldier, Junkrat, Reaper, I think are, some of the best ones. Mei is a good one. Who else is a good DPS? McCree is also a good DPS. He's a little harder to play than Soldier, but he'll teach you, mostly the same things Soldier does, but also he'll teach you ability usage, because Flashbang and Roll are pretty important for McCree. And he'll teach you the same stuff that Soldier will teach you as well. Who else is like a good DPS? There's like that's 5 DPS. That's like a pretty good number of people. Fire is also okay. Positioning and ability usage kind of comes into it with Farah, but like, you know, Farah's positioning is a little bit on the unorthodox side comparatively, given that you're in the air, but you know, you still learn the same gist of things, like use cover, don't be in the open, you know, it's just you're doing it while you're in the air as well. Those are like the best DPS to play, I think, as far as like starter DPS go. I would pick like probably Soldier and McCree as like the 2 best ones, and then like Junkrat, Reaper, May, probably like something in that order. Soldier and McCree are like pretty close together, they're like very similar heroes. There you go. That's basically what I got for you on that one. Those are like the best ones to pick when learning the role. So next up is Rein or Orisa on attack. It kind of doesn't matter. Like, you can play either and it's fine. I've never been as fond of Orisa on attack, except payload, obviously, you know. And after the shield nerf, I think she's worse on attack now than she was previously as well. So I always preferred Reinhardt, but the nerf for Orisa, like, Orisa got nerfed a lot harder than like Reinhardt did, as far as I'm concerned. So I still prefer Reinhardt, but it kind of doesn't matter. Like, you can pick either. Orisa, like, gets some preferential treatment depending on the map, because like payload maps, Orisa's good attacking on payload. So if there's like geometry that's like easy to leapfrog between, then Orisa's good for that as well. But then I mean, Reinhardt can move faster while his shield is up now as well, so it's easy to go from like cover to cover. It's easier to go from cover to cover as Reinhardt in general, but like you need to be able to like leapfrog up as Orisa, because you have to move up like with your shield. So certain maps it's not like super easy to do, like something like that's a payload map. Like if you like Route 66 isn't great if you like get knocked off the payload for Orisa, because there's a lot of just like kind of straight lines on that map without too much cover. Like it's not easy to like leapfrog from cover to cover as Orisa on Route 66 until the 3rd checkpoint anyway. But I mean, the 3rd checkpoint's just a complete crapshoot on Route 66 as far as I'm concerned. Hanamura, there isn't a whole lot of stuff to like leapfrog between really, except for like if you go like through the door on the right side on the 1st checkpoint. That's kind of, because then like after you get through that, like you've got a long stretch from the next doorway to the point with like a lot of open space in there. Rein's better covering that kind of ground than Orisa is, because the 600 health shield with like a cooldown gated, like, doesn't help you when you have to cover like really large expanses of open space. Rein's better for that kind of thing. But yeah, like, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, it's largely gonna be personal preference, though certain maps Orisa's better on, payload maps, and then certain maps she's worse on. But I mean, that's also true of like all heroes in the game. So, you know, I think generally speaking, Reinhardt's going to be better, unless you're on a payload map. Then Orisa is probably generally better. So there you go. But I mean, the real answer is whichever one you're better at, because skill with hero is greater than all other aspects. Like, if you don't know how to play a hero, don't play that hero. Like, you know, unless you're trying to learn how to play that hero, in which case, by all means, play that hero that you don't know how to play. That's the whole point of learning. But outside that, just play the hero you know how to play. So, next up is how to dive a Widowmaker effectively as D.Va. It's kind of not your job to dive Widow as D.Va. That's more a job for a Winston or a Hammond. It's easier for them to do it. You can do it as D.Va, obviously. So, like, you gotta think about a couple things with this. First off is, like, is Widow's hook off cooldown? If it is, then it's gonna be, like, really hard for you to kill the Widowmaker. You don't necessarily have enough to kill the Widowmaker. If you can force her off of the high ground that she wants to stand on, that's gonna be good enough a lot of the time. So, like, you know, like, Temple of Anubis, they love standing on that, open space behind the platform on the rooftops on the first checkpoint. You want to force her off of that. Everywhere else on the fence is, like, not ideal for her to stand on. So, you know, controlling that, like, just getting her off of that kind of space is fine. You don't necessarily have to kill her. You won't kill her unless you see that her hook is off cooldown, basically. If you see her use her hook and she ends up somewhere isolated, you'll kill her. You just go on her at that point. Her hook cooldown is super long, so you just, like, go at that point. So, yeah, anyway. You gotta think about if her hook's on cooldown. Is she isolated? Because if she isn't isolated, you're not gonna get her as D.Va either. You're like... This is the thing with D.Va, is that because she only has Defense Matrix as any kind of defensive ability, and that's only in front of her, and she can't, like, really be attacking while she has it up, right? So... it makes it harder for her to dive people unless they're isolated, because other people can just kind of shoot D.Va while she's doing this. Whereas, like, Hammond has a fucking massive personal barrier, and Winston has his bubble, which will cover him while he's tasing people. It covers him from everybody while he's tasing the person, right? So, D.Va, if they're not isolated, like, the other people are just gonna clap you. And so then you have to think... Also, you have to think, am I going to lose my mech for doing this? If the answer is yes, then you probably shouldn't try to dive Widowmaker right now. You might not necessarily... you might keep your mech, but it might also still not be worth it if you're going to lose, like, a lot of health. Because when you're playing D.Va, you do have to consider how much ult charge am I feeding the enemy team, because D.Va is one of your classic ult battery heroes, so you kind of have to worry about that as well as if you're going to lose your mech. If you're going to lose your mech, it's, like, basically never going to be worth it. If you have self-destruct, maybe, but, like, you don't want to be losing your mech very often, so, you know, best avoided. And then the other thing you have to ask yourself is also, like, is there something more important? Is there, like, a cooldown I need to be eating right now? Because that's a much higher priority for D.Va than, like, diving a sniper. So if they're, like, an Ana grenade, Ashe's dynamite, flashbang. Is there something like that? Or, like, an ultimate, like Graviton, or Barrage? Do I need to be worrying about that right now? If you do need to be worrying about them, then you shouldn't be worrying about diving the Widowmaker unless you spot, like, a really good opportunity to dive on them, because eating abilities and ultimates is a lot more in D.Va's area than diving Widowmaker is, but, so, you know, to summarize, you have to think to yourself, did she use her hook cooldown? Is she isolated? Am I going to lose my mech? And is there an ability I need to be eating right now? And, like, depending on your answers to those questions, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be the perfect situation, you know, like, it doesn't have to go, like, yes, she used it, she's isolated, I won't take any damage, and there's nothing for me to worry about. Like, it doesn't need to be all of those things for you to go in on the person. Like, is she isolated? Did she use her hook? You know, it might be worth it, even if you take, like, 300 damage. You know, it might be worth it, depending on how much work the Widowmaker is doing in that game. There might be an ability you need to be worrying about right now, but she just hook-shot it off and she's isolated right now, so you think to yourself, you know, like, the teams behind a shield are pretty far back. They're probably not going to get splashed by Ana right now. Like, I'll go and try and get the get the Widowmaker really quick before this happens, you know. You might think something like that, but those are the things you want to ask yourself when you're diving on the Widowmaker. But if the Widowmaker is, like, really causing your team problems and you don't need to be playing D.Va for some kind of counterpick reason, which is basically, like, to eat, like, Graviton or Barrage, or Buliafara. If you don't need to be playing D.Va for those kinds of reasons, just change to Winston or Hammond. You will have a much easier time killing Widowmaker as those people, rather than D.Va. Well, Winston almost certainly. Hammond, it depends on if you can play Hammond. But, you know, you get the idea. So there you go. Next up is, how do I gain the courage to make callouts in voice chat? You gotta fake it till you make it, dude. This is one of those things where, like, you know, it's the sort of thing that seems scarier until you actually, like, start doing it. Because, I mean, basically the thing you to worry about is, like, is somebody gonna shit-talk me for doing this? They're gonna make fun of me, right? Like, you're afraid of looking foolish. I mean, like, here's the thing. Even if they do, like, make fun of you for whatever reason, these people in, like, 15 minutes effectively cease to exist because you'll never see them again. In all likelihood, unless you're on the extreme ends of the SR spectrum, extremely high or extremely low, you'll never see them again. You know, doesn't matter. Try to bear that in mind, but, like, this is one of those things where you just, like, do it, and you're like, oh, this isn't actually, like, not as bad as I thought it would be, really. I used to have this thing where I was like, I hated talking to people on the phone. Still kind of hate talking to people on the phone, but, like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh god, it's so scary. But then you do it enough times and you're like, oh, that guy! I know that guy. I play against that guy a lot. Rinses me every time, but, you know. Fucking dirty Cell players. Ugh, gross. I won on Cell a few times in this video, though. Haha, yes, definitely me. God, I miss having a controller. I hate Cell, though. Wouldn't play Cell. Never. Fuck that guy. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. It's one of those things where you start doing it, and you're like, this isn't actually, like, as scary as I thought it would be. Anything, like, it's an anxiety-related thing. And, like, I'm someone who suffers from anxiety. And almost always with anxiety, you think it's going to be so much worse than it actually turns out to be. Kind of how anxiety works. Like, once you do it enough times, you'll just, like, you know, fake it till you make it. You'll get more confident doing it. And I mean, you don't need to make, like, complicated call-outs, right? Like, it can just be something really simple, like, Reinhardt has ult, watch out, you know. That's fine enough. Or, just, like, let's go left, let's go right, you know. Reaper's on Mercy, help her out, you know, something like that. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. So, like, just start making, like, simple callouts. X has ult, Y is getting dove, help them. Let's go, left, right, center, you know, whatever. Start making, like, simple callouts. And I mean, to be fair, like, there are not many situations where you need to make more complicated callouts, really, unless you're in, like, some kind of organized setting. In which case, you're probably not so scared to make callouts, because if you're playing with, like, a group of friends, you're probably not as nervous about it as you would be playing with randoms. So, you know, just try and bear in mind, even if, like, it does go wrong, like, you make the wrong call, or people make fun of you, these people, they cease existing in 15 minutes. You'll never see them again. Once in a blue moon, you'll see the guy again, but you will almost never see the guy a second time, so whatever, who cares? And just make simple callouts until you get more comfortable doing it, and then, you know, just do it a couple times, you know, try and, like, set just, like, a simple goal for yourself, like, I'm going to try and make, like, 3 callouts this game, or something, you know, and just, like, you'll figure out, it's not as scary as I thought it was, and you'll get more comfortable doing it. You know, this is how anxiety usually works. You just kind of you have to force yourself to do something enough times, and then you go, I thought it'd be worse. You know. In my experience, anyway, you know, it's could vary greatly from person to person. So, next up is, how do I counter Nanoblade as DPS? So, as an individual, your whole contribution to stopping Nanoblade as a DPS will be, use any crowd control if you have it, and pray you kill the guy. That's it. Like, if they're using Nanoblade, you pray really hard that it just happens to go well for you. So here's, like, what you actually do to counter Nanoblade, right? And it's to take a more proactive approach with the game. Because if you let the enemy team use Nanoblade on their own terms, it is, like, 9 times out of 10, it is going to end badly for you. So you need to take a proactive approach to this situation. The thing is that this is something that will require an amount of team play. As terrifying as that concept is, I know. Because what you want to do is just pressure the enemy so that they use their ultimates in a non-ideal circumstance. Because, I mean, if you get the enemy tank really low, the Ana is going to use Nano Boost to save his life, right? You know, that's gonna happen. If you, like, start pressuring the Genji so that he isn't, like, in an optimal situation, like dive in and use Dragon Blade, then he's gonna start in an awkward position, and he's gonna, and then it's gonna be easier for him to fuck up the Dragon Blade. Though this is like pressuring Ana, get the Nano Boost out of her, or pressure the tanks, so that she blows it on them instead of the Genji. Nano Boost is now gone. Dragon Blade is significantly easier to deal with than Nano Blade is. If it's just Dragon Blade, a Lucio or a Zenyatta's ultimate will get you through it. If it's Nano Blade, they probably won't. You need to do additional praying on top of the defensive ultimate. So if you can pressure Ana or the tanks, get Nano Boost out of her, it's way easier to deal with. Oh god. Okay, thank goodness. What button did I just push on this keyboard? Yeah, like, that's what you want to do versus Nano Blade, is you want to pressure the enemy team so that they can't use... I'm sorry, I cracked my knuckles right next to the microphone again. You want to force them to use their ultimates in a non-ideal circumstance. If you get the Nano Boost out of Ana, you don't have to worry about a Nano Boost or a Nano Blade anymore. Problem solved. The thing is, there's just, like, you know, your team needs to be trying to pressure these people. You as an individual still do not strictly have much control over this. You can pick a flanker or a diver and try to pressure Ana yourself, but, like, ultimately you're gonna need an amount of assistance, because Ana can always just, like, try and get the Nano Boost out on the Genji before she dies, and that can be good enough, right? So, like, no guarantee that you by yourself are gonna be able to deal with it. But, like, if they're using Nano Blade and it's just, like, neutral, like, Genji started in his, like, ideal position and they're, like, just engaged with Nano Blade, you're probably fucked. Like, you've already gotten to the point where it is you have to pray to recover from this position now. So the goal is to try and not be in the position where you have to pray, but that requires a proactive approach from your team. He was fishing for that one attack so much, I'm annoyed Gohan fell for it. What? You know what Gohan should have done there? Just try to fucking grab fucking 18 out of that. Because he was not gonna stop spamming that ability until it worked. Yeah, like that. You gotta try and be proactive about these things, but that requires some amount of teamwork, so... Outside that, you can crowd control Genji and pray. So there you go. So next up is how to deal with players claiming you aren't healing. You can't. Like, if somebody's decided you're playing DPS Moira, or just that you're not healing people in general, there's nothing you can do to convince these people. You could end that game with 50k healing, and you have the card to prove it right there. Like, it says 50k, like 90% of teammates of damage taken healed, or something. It could say that, and they'll still say you weren't healing people. People who have decided something cannot look at Cell. I hate Cell. Goddamn. People who have decided that kind of thing cannot be reasoned with. They have decided you are not healing people, so you're not healing them. You will not be able to convince them otherwise. Don't bother. Just don't bother interacting with the person. That's the only thing you can deal with it. And this is true if you're playing any role. If they have decided that you are not doing damage as a DPS, you could end that game saying you did 50k damage, like 80% of damage taken or some shit, right? Like, they'll still say that you weren't doing any damage. I always liked this one a lot. Back in the day, damaging a barrier used to contribute to your damage done medal. So, like, I remember this one frequently. They were like, I was trying to play DPS at the time, and they were like, "You're not doing shit." I'm like, "Do you even have the gold medal? You don't even have the gold medal." I do have the gold medal. And then when they find out you've got the gold medal, they go, "You probably spent the whole time shooting Zarya's bubbles." Like, it doesn't matter. Like, people just move the goalpost, right? Like, even if you can show them proof that you are doing damage, they will just move the goalpost further down the pitch. Like, you can't convince people. Not tanking is a tank, even if you are. Doesn't matter. You get 50k damage blocked. doesn't necessarily mean anything if you're a tank, to be fair, but they can see that and they'll say, I still never held your shield up. You can't reason with these people. Don't bother. Just block them, mute them, whatever, move on. You'll not convince them otherwise. They don't want to be convinced. They've already made their mind up. And you know how people are on the internet when they've already made a decision. I'm a little mad I hit her. So next up, and this is the last question for this week, is Bastion not terrible anymore? So here's the stat. So this person was posting, like, basically, with shields being nerfed, does that mean Bastion's good now? Because it means he can chew through the shields faster. First off, no, any shield nerf is nerfing Bastion, because Bastion is way more dependent on standing behind shields than anything else. This is the thing with any Bastion composition, is Bastion's the thing you're looking at, so people are always like, Bastion's the linchpin of this operation. It is actually the shields that are carrying Bastion every time. So anytime shields get nerfed, this is a nerf to Bastion. So no, the shield nerf does not help Bastion in any way. But here's the thing. Someone posted in the thread some stats about Bastion. So currently, Bastion has like the worst pick and win ratio of all time. So Bastion currently has a 0.02% pick rate, which, you know, these numbers are going to be a little skewed because it's off like one of the stat tracking websites. So the numbers are going to be skewed, right? But just wait till when you hear it all in its entirety, it's like, oh shit, Bastion's fucked, isn't he? Oh my god. So Bastion currently has a 0.02% pick ratio and an 11% win ratio. That is unbelievably terrible. Because, like, as well, the less often that somebody is getting picked, you would honestly expect their win ratio to be higher. Because if their pick rate is really low, that means it's people that, like, really like that character that are really picking them. So you would expect them to be good at the character, and therefore win semi-regularly. For comparison, the closest person, stat-wise, to Bastion right now is Symmetra, who currently has a 0.31% pick ratio. So, you know, we've moved a whole decimal point up here, so she's doing great in comparison pick rate. But she has a 54% win ratio. So, Bastion is fucking 43% lower than his next closest one, despite having a fraction of the pick ratio as well. So, you assume it's like people who really like Bastion are picking Bastion, right? 43% lower than the next closest one. Holy shit, that's awful. Oh my god. Bastion's like fucked, apparently. Again, these stats are skewed because the stat tracking websites are not 100%. They never were, for the record, because they never scraped the whole player base before. It was only the aggregate of everybody that had previously looked themselves up, which was... And now it's only people who have looked themselves up and have a non-private profile. So, obviously. So, like, it's, like, skewed. It's always been skewed, but it's more skewed now. But, like, even so, that is fucking awful, dude. Like, we can assume it's better than that. Like, he's getting picked and probably wins more than that, but, like, Jesus Christ, that's awful. I don't really care, though, to be honest with you, because Bastion, I think, is hands down the most unfun hero to play against in the entire game. And you can go, it's not fun to play against snipers, it's not fun to play against Mei. You're right, it's not. But here's the thing. 1 or 2 people can deal with Mei and Widowmaker, right? When somebody in the game picks Bastion, the whole fucking game revolves around Bastion at that point. Everybody on the enemy team is focusing squarely on Bastion. Everybody on the allied team has to focus on protecting Bastion. Bastion dominates the game as soon as he is in it. He demands the attention of all 11 other people in the game. And I find this to be extremely unfun, that one person can essentially hold the game hostage like this. So I don't really care if Bastion is never picked and also never wins. I think, thank goodness, get this guy out of here. So, I mean, anyway, I hope Bastion gets, like, a rework. So here's my big dream for Bastion, right, if he got reworked. I would like them to rework Bastion to actually be a tank, right? I would like them to increase his health by 100, maybe even just 50, and then make it so that his transformation is something more akin to, like, the Heavy from TF2, where he is moving slower and he's doing, like, not as much damage as he does now, like, significantly less, and he can still move, but he's moving, like, very slowly, basically. Maybe, like, turns into some kind of, like, mobile fortress arrangement, make him bigger, and then give him, like, some kind of shield, like, maybe put, like, the old shield he had back on beta in, but as, like, kind of a resource that he has to manage, like someone like Toes does. So, like, while he's in this kind of, like, immobile damage dealing state, he puts the shield up, and it's, like, 600 health or something, and it's, like, Toes-ish size in front of him. So he's kind of like a mobile fortress kind of arrangement. I think that would be cool. I don't know what you do with his ultimate. I guess you could leave it the same. Maybe, like, he'll leave the barrier behind if you transform changes, and it's just kind of the same as it is right now. I don't know. I think it would be cool if he was something like a mobile fortress kind of thing, where he bulks up while he's in this form, expands out, puts the barrier in front of him, and then his team just kind of, like, stacks up behind him. And it's kind of like this very... It's very hostile to try and, like, damage the Bastion's team at that point, but, like, it's a very, like, finite window that he can do it in, because as soon as the shield's gone, then suddenly he's just a big old damage sponge waiting to take some damage, right? So, I think that would be cool. My dream would be that they rework Bastion into a tank hero, but I don't think that they would do that. I think what they would actually do is just, like, probably just, like, nerf turret, buff recon, you know? Something like that, probably. Just make, like, maybe change his ultimate to be a little bit better. Maybe it, like, does bonus damage, like, it does, like, double damage to shields. Or maybe, like, there's some damage, like, leaks through the shield. You know, something like... I don't think they'd ever, like, actually make him a tank. I think they just, like, nerf turret, buff recon, change his ultimate, and, like, everything would stay basically the same. But that would be my dream, is that he got made into, like, a fortress tank. But anyway, I mostly just wanted to do that one because, like, holy shit, dudes. Those are some fucking awful statistics. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. More than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them. Or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 p.m. EST till midnight EST. There's a link till 11 EST, not midnight. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.